Then came Smackdown, Friday night at Madison Square Garden, their second straight week of excellent shows on Friday. There's a rumor going around, by the way, that MSG might be hosting Survivor Series this year, but that's all it is right now, is just a rumor. They didn't announce a return date on Friday night. They usually run the day after Christmas at the Garden. That's become an annual tradition. Now, if the Wyatt Six stuff was the highlight of Raw this week, then the Bloodline acknowledgement ceremony was the highlight of not only SmackDown, but I would say it was the highlight of the entire month, because nothing was going to top that performance that Paul Heyman gave this week. Mike Johnson on PW Insider called it one of the greatest of Heyman's career. I think we can safely drop the one of qualifier. You don't have to say one of. It was the greatest performance of Paul Heyman's entire career. And it's the best story that he has ever booked or had a hand in booking, going all the way back to the ECW days. Okay, we know Heyman has a lot of input behind the scenes into the Bloodline story. Him and Roman both, very hands-on with it. This is Paul Heyman's greatest work. Creatively, this is his greatest work. I cannot pay him a better compliment than that. This poor bastard was out there on Friday on no sleep. And when he's done this before, I think he's even talked about it in interviews, where there have been times on WWE television over the years. And there was one time with Brock Lesnar, there was some story going on and he was on edge, and he would stay up all night the night before so that he can look the part on TV. You know, we've seen him do this before, where he's all disheveled, he hasn't shaved, it looks like, in days. His eyes are all bloodshot. He looked like he was on a 5-day bender on Friday. This was the night that the wise man stood his ground and he paid the price for it. This man's nerves have been frayed for weeks, right? We've seen him. He's looked like a hostage in every single one of these segments we've seen him in now for months. A few weeks ago, he begged CM Punk, "Take me with you." I've watched this segment back a few times now. Each time I try to pay attention to a different member of the Bloodline to see what I may have missed the first time. How did I miss Jacob Fatu the first time? Pacing around in the background during this segment, staring at Solo Sikoa like an escaped mental patient. He was great. Now, let's talk about the lead up to this segment and the segment itself. Because we knew there was some sort of Bloodline acknowledgement ceremony. We didn't know what that meant. We had no idea. That was the only thing they hyped up for this week. Bloodline acknowledgement segment plus the Money in the Bank qualifiers. And the Bloodline arrives early in the show. Paul Heyman is waiting for them, and there's no Jacob Fatu. And he's like, "Where is Jacob?" Right? No word on Jacob Fatu. Jacob Fatu had this incredible debut the week before, where he just ran through Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton, and Kevin Owens, three of the top babyfaces in the company, including the WWE champion. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. And now they're in Madison Square Garden. This was his Madison Square Garden debut. You knew he was going to be there, but he wasn't with them at the very beginning. And then as the show progressed, Solo said, "Look, you said that Jacob was," I forgot exactly what word he used, but like you were worried about him or he was a loose cannon or something. So he's not here. Jacob Fatu is not here. He's not going to be here. And tonight in the ceremony later on, I'm going to make it official that you are now my wise man. So they go out to the ring for the closing segment on this show. And Solo Sikoa is doing his best Roman Reigns impersonation. Paul starts talking. He cuts him off, puts his hand out for the microphone like Roman would do. And then he introduces Jacob Fatu. So right off the bat, you knew he lied to Heyman and you knew Heyman was fucked. Now, we got to see Jacob Fatu get his own entrance. I loved it because, well, two reasons I loved it. Number one, they had a great opening to the show where it was just this giant brawl where the Bloodline gets to the building, they walk through the back, they're on their way to the ring, but then Cody and Randy and KO, they just arrived to the building. Now they're walking through the back. And the Bloodline's waiting for them, and the babyfaces come out on stage, and we get a big brawl, right? Hot way to open the show. Here, in this segment, Jacob Fatu makes his entrance because he wasn't there at the beginning of the show. They saved him from getting a beatdown and looking like just every other member of the Bloodline who got laid out at the beginning of the show. They're going out of their way just 2 weeks in to protect him and to keep him special. So he gets his own entrance, And again, he got the generic Def Rebel music. The music is not terrible, but again, the music situation in WWE fucking sucks. Def Rebel is terrible. I don't know why they insist on keeping them and not improving their music situation. It is a very important part of the presentation for these wrestlers, and they're doing themselves no favors with this generic garbage. But as far as his entrance is concerned, lights out, flames shooting up, he looked like a star walking out to the ring. And as the segment progressed, we had Solo going member by member, asking them to step forward and acknowledge him until he gets to Paul Heyman. And he tells Paul, you got one chance to live. Acknowledge me. And then he brings out the Ula Fala. Now, they've established in this story before the importance of this necklace and what it means to the family, what it means to the bloodline. Roman is the only one who wears it. So they've already taken the time to explain to you this thing is important. And the way Heyman sold it when they pulled it out of the bag, it was just perfect, right? He just can't believe this. How did you get this? And he wants Paul to place it upon his neck and acknowledge him as his tribal chief, which answers the question that I think we knew the answer to, but this has been going on since WrestleMania. We've heard references to the tribal chief, right? But we didn't know for sure if it was Solo Sikoa or is it The Rock and The Rock I think is higher than a tribal chief anyway, but we didn't know for sure. Well, now there's no debate about who this tribal chief is that they've been referencing. It's Solo Sikoa. And now Paul Heyman, who is in tears. I mean, he's looking up at the sky. He's praying to someone high above. He kisses the Ula Fala. He looks like he's in physical pain. And he's got to make a decision here. What is he going to do? And he tells Solo, I love you, and I acknowledge, and then he pauses, and the crowd is stirring, that you are not my tribal chief. He couldn't even get the words out. You couldn't hear him. He was drowned out by the crowd. The reaction this got from 17,000 people in Madison Square Garden was fucking amazing. That's how you know this story is firing on all cylinders. When you can get a reaction like that, you've done your job. It's like Sami Zayn hitting Roman Reigns in the back with a chair at the Royal Rumble. Everything built to that moment, and when we got it, it got the appropriate reaction. This was the biggest pop that Paul Heyman has ever gotten in his entire career. This was the Paul Heyman babyface turn right here. The first one I can ever remember, at least in WWE. I mean, he was always a babyface to the ECW audience and on those one-night stand shows. But this is really the first time now that we are seeing the babyface turn of Paul Heyman. And he stands there. He doesn't run away. He doesn't, it's not like he's going to run very fast anyway. He didn't jump out of the ring he stood there crying because he knew what was about to happen and he got spiked. And then Jacob Fatu comes off the top rope with the diving headbutt and they're not done. They drag him out of the ring. They clear off the announce desk. And Paul Heyman, at 58 years old, now think about this. Paul Heyman was taking bumps 20 years ago when he turned on Brock Lesnar and he aligned with the Big Show and they feuded in 2003, night after night, in the dark match at Smackdown or on some of the house shows. He was taking so many fucking F5 bumps. Him and Big Show both, to where Big Show was all beat up. Heyman was all beat up. You got Brock, who, especially when he was younger, didn't even know his own strength, beating the hell out of these guys every single night. And that was 20 years ago. It's hard to believe Heyman was still only in his 30s back then. Now he's 58 years old and hardly in the shape that he should be in to be taking bumps. And they got him up for a triple power bomb through the announce desk. He took the Shield power bomb, of all things. Just to rub it in Roman's face, they used the Shield power bomb on his wise man. And the bloodline stood tall. Heyman was dead. He ended up being carried out of the building on a stretcher into an ambulance. We've seen that a few times on TV recently. He can join Ricochet now in the hospital. Ricochet and CM Punk. We've had a few people do stretcher jobs in this company over the last few weeks. This is getting dangerous. But now all roads lead to the return of Roman Reigns. I was not expecting him on this show. There were people who were expecting Roman Reigns to come out and save Paul Heyman. I didn't think he would be there regardless, but especially the same week his father passed away. They're not going to rush him back to TV. But it's too soon to bring him back in a TV segment. We haven't even gotten to Money in the Bank yet. The earliest I would even consider bringing Roman back would be this Saturday at Money in the Bank, and I don't get the impression it's going to happen there either. They're probably waiting for SummerSlam. Whenever it happens, Roman Reigns is going to come out. When they hit that music, I mean, my God, the reaction is going to be nuclear when this man walks out. They have built this perfectly. Roman Reigns, when he comes back, it's not really enough to just say that he's going to be a babyface. Roman Reigns as a babyface is going to relegate Cody Rhodes to the number 2 spot. He's going to relegate the WWE champion to second-class status. And there really isn't much that Cody can do about it. As popular as he is right now, when Roman comes back, it's just going to be something on a whole nother level. When you have somebody that you build up for 3.5 years as your unstoppable champion, now he's no longer the champion. You have elevated him to a place that nobody else in the company can match because he was dominant for so long. He's in that rarefied air now that where nobody else can even touch him. That's where he's going to be when he comes back. It doesn't make Cody any less of a star to the people. It just means that this guy is a bigger star than he is. And when he comes back, the next chapter of this story can progress. And we'll get that Bloodline Civil War. We still have, there's so many different ways it can play out. But we know that at some point, Jimmy's going to come back. We have Jimmy Uso still out. He's going to come back. The Usos are going to reunite. The Usos then have to make up and reunite with Roman. When Roman comes back, is Heyman going to be with him on that first night? I could see Heyman walking out first, and then, boom, the music hits, and they come back together on the same night, potentially. I don't know how they're going to work it. I was thinking, imagine a united front of Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, and CM Punk, all standing together in defense of Paul Heyman. I'm not saying it's going to happen, or it would make sense for this story, but we already had Heyman on TV a couple weeks ago telling Solo that, he told Roman understood that, CM Punk was off limits. He's my friend. He's off limits. But if they wanted a way to reintroduce Brock Lesnar into the storylines, I'm just saying that could be one way. So I love what they did. It was a fantastic segment, and it was the best that Solo Sikoa has looked since WrestleMania. Because I just don't look at Solo. I can't buy him. It's been hard for me to buy him in that role. But this was the closest I've come. He looked like a leader in this segment. He looked as good here as he has in any of these other Bloodline segments that they've done. As far as someone in that role who could be believable, I still don't totally buy him in the role, but even he looked good on Friday. And I've said what I've said already on Jacob Fatu. The guy's going to be a monster star. For now, they have him in the enforcer role. He's already out there in a prime spot, looking like a killer. I just love what they're doing with this story right now. And SummerSlam is going to be big, and it gives a lot more credence to the Meltzer report that the plan for SummerSlam is Cody and Solo. Cody Rhodes and Solo Sikoa for the WWE Championship. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Let's talk about this PLE coming up this Saturday, because before we get to SummerSlam, we've got Money in the Bank